Hey everyone, this is Laurie Delk Radecki, and tonight I'm coming to you with one of my Laurie's lessons. And tonight we are going to talk about walking through the what ifs with faith. And so, ev every day we try to discover one simple truth to help us to choose faith and to live with purpose because we all have choices, right? And so this one is called Walking Through the What Ifs because how many times have you thought about that, right? Have you ever noticed like how really creative your mind could be? Sometimes we could imagine like 20 different ways on how something could go wrong, like literally even before breakfast, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but I know my mind can do that. Like, have you ever caught yourself thinking, maybe, what if I make the wrong decision? Or what if I fail? Or what if I lose my job? Or what if my health gets worse? What if they don't like me? What if I never find my purpose? Like so many things of what ifs, right? I mean, if you start down that what if rabbit trail, you can go in that downward spiral. I know I can. So maybe you're better than me, but I know I can do that and I can do it very quickly. But our minds are incredible gifts from God. They help us solve problems. We learn, we create, we dream. But if we're not careful, they can also become experts at imagining problems that don't even exist yet and that might not ever exist, right? I mean, that's one of the things I've learned over the years is fear. God is not the author of fear, remember? Fear loves to write stories about a future that it doesn't know, right? It fills in the blanks with the worst case scenarios. And before long, we've convinced ourselves that something terrible is going to happen, even though nothing has happened yet, right? That's one of the reasons I don't allow myself to watch anything on TV or listen to things that are bad, like horror, like scary, even if it's too much action, all those things, because like the little song that we sang in Sunday school, right? Be careful, little ears, what you hear. Be careful, little eyes, what you see, right? Because it's huge what you listen to and what you see, what you allow into your mind affects you. And one of the enemy's favorite tools is getting us to live in those imaginary tomorrows instead of today's reality. So, I mean, think about that. If he can keep us afraid of what might happen, then he can often keep us from doing what God's asking us to do. Think about that. Like, how many dreams have never started because of one simple question? What if? What if people laugh? What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if I don't know enough? What if it doesn't work? Right? But all those things, what if it does? Right? I think every one of us has probably asked those questions at certain points. Like I said, I know I have. And I have to remind myself when you start to fall down one of those rabbit trails to get back up and think properly, right? And, I realized if fear gets to ask what if, then why can't faith ask it too, right? So, fear says, what if everything goes wrong? But faith can say, what if God's already working behind the scenes? What if he's opening a door that you can't see yet? What if this delay is actually protecting you? That's one thing that I remember before this house. My husband and I were looking at another house, and there were so many things, and it would take forever to go into all the drama from then. But we literally went to this house almost every day. We would go inside it. We would sit down on, once they um, made it for an open house and they put furniture in there, we would go inside and sit down when they left it open, but the realtor wasn't there. And we would talk about this house and dream about this other house. And it seemed like every time we tried something, a door got shut. Whether it was the person that was buying our other house backed out, whether it was the company wouldn't take our deposit, whether it was they wouldn't let us do the contingency. I mean, there were so many things. Literally at least like 10 different things where we felt like a door was closed. And we were like, God, what are you doing? Isn't this house for us? And now it's in the same neighborhood. So now we look at that house and we go, we are so thankful and grateful that God protected us and did not answer our prayers because He had this property for sale for us that was sold and then all of a sudden came up for sale. And then we got to build it from scratch exactly the way we wanted instead of having one that was already built for us. But also, like some more things, like what if God's using the season to strengthen your character about something? Or what if this disappointment is redirecting you towards something better? What if God is preparing blessings for you that you hadn't even imagined, right? I mean, that's like in this house, a lot of times my husband and I say, we love this house. We have sayings all over the place of that, you know, we prayed for this house, that God gave it to us. And, it's the question isn't whether we will have those what if thoughts, because we're probably always going to have them in different areas. But the question is, which voice are we going to believe, right? So, I know, Proverbs says, trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lead not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths, right? But it doesn't say trust in the Lord once you understand everything, right? It says trust him first. And I know, I mean, I am an infomaniac. I love information. I study all the time. I read all the time. I listen to trainings all the time. I love to understand everything, but sometimes understanding comes later. And, remember like Peter stepping out on the boat? Could you imagine if the what ifs were running through his mind? Because it did at one point, right? What if I sink? And he started to sink a little bit. What if everyone laughs? What if I can't do this? But Peter didn't have to trust the water. He had to trust the one who called him onto it, right? And that's the same thing for us. Many times we're so focused on those waves that we forget who is standing in them. So the next time your mind starts to race with all those fearful possibilities, just pause. Just take a deep breath. Turn that what if into a prayer, maybe. Instead of saying, what if everything falls apart? Maybe ask, Jesus, what if you're already working this together for my good? Right? Instead of asking, what if I fail? Say, Jesus, please help me to be faithful. I trust you with the outcome. Or like saying, what if I'm not enough? Because God never asked us to be enough on our own. right? He always asks us to trust him. Back in 1993, I was pregnant with my second child. At the time, my husband was going to leave his job to follow his career as a police officer. I was going to leave my job as an accountant for a Fortune 500 company to be a stay-at-home mom, what I wanted to be. And we were like, we're in our 20s, we can do it, right? But we had to have a lot of faith to be able to take that step. And a lot of people doubted us. But I started my BMD Enterprises branding, marketing, and design company back then in 1993. And the internet was just coming out for the real world. And I said, God, if you'll be my business partner, I'll use it for you. Now, over 30 years later, I've designed thousands and thousands and thousands of websites and done branding and marketing for people and social media marketing once that came out, and so many different things, and especially a lot for colleges and ministries and churches. But I also, and also businesses, obviously, but I use it to glorify him, right? And I heard a quote like many years ago that stayed with me, and it says, worry doesn't empty tomorrow of its sorrow, but it does empty today of its strength. Like, think about how true that is. When we spend all day today worrying about tomorrow, then maybe we miss the blessings that God placed right in front of us today. I remember, when I first met Kevin, and he was so much more laid back than me. And, at the time I was working about 100 hours a week, but I love what I do. And I was like in that mode of, my kids were grown. I didn't have grandkids yet at the time. So I need to work, work, work so I can plan for my future. So when I have grandkids, I can spend time with them. And I remember Kevin would coach me to step back a little bit, right? And but we would drive around or we would sit out on our back porch and we'd just look at the sky. And I'd be like, wow, these clouds are just so beautiful. How beautiful are these? And I think it's because I never took the time to really just sit and enjoy looking at the beautiful clouds that God created. And now I look at them every day. I take that time to look at them every day, as well as so many other things because we spend at least an hour outside almost every day. Um, but so here's my challenge for you. The next time some fearful what if enters your mind, don't let it stay there. Replace it because we all have choices. Remember that. Fear says, what if I can't? But faith says, what if God can? Or with God's help, I can. Fear says, what if I lose? But faith says, what if God has something even better? Like we lost that other house. We're so thankful we lost that other house now because we love this one so much more. Fear says, what if I fail? And faith says, what if this becomes a part of my testimony? Right? Because every time that you choose that faith over fear, you're also training your heart to trust God just a little bit more. And over time, those small choices, they become a lifestyle. So remember Proverbs 3, 5 through 6. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding, and all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. So remember, you might not know what tomorrow holds, but you do know the God that holds tomorrow, right? And that's enough. So thanks so much for joining me today, and keep choosing faith and keep living life with purpose. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please share it with a friend. Please write me a review, subscribe.